Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the 2022 Sausalito City Council Candidates Forum. I'm Sila Saleska, president of the Sausalito Women's Club. The club was founded in 1913 to preserve the beauty of Sausalito, to aid through organized effort such worthy causes as may enlist its sympathies, and to create a center of thought and action among the people for the promotion of whatever tends for the best interests of the city. I'd like to thank the club's Civic Committee co-chairs, Debbie Ford Scriba and Alice Merrill, for helping organize tonight's forum, and our invaluable partners, Leslie Dixon, Nancy Bell, Ann Bateman, Ann Wakely, and Robin Diedrich from the League of Women Voters of Marin County for making the forum possible. When we say we couldn't do without them, we really mean it. The League of Women Voters has worked to realize its mission to empower voters and defend democracy for over 100 years. Moderating candidate forums is an important part of their vision of a democracy in which every citizen has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. The League is a strictly nonpartisan organization and never supports or opposes individual candidates or political parties. All presentation team members are, by design, not members of the Sausalito voting community. And now I'm pleased to turn over to our partners from the League of Women Voters and tonight's moderator, Sue Ream. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sue Ream, and I'm your moderator for the evening. Thank you for joining us for this candidate forum featuring candidates for Sausalito City Council. Thank you to our host partner, the Sausalito Women's Club, for inviting the League to moderate. We are honored to be here. We would also like to thank our host partner, along with members of the public, for submitting tonight's question. The League is a trusted, nonpartisan membership organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We promote voter education and advocate for issues. We never endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. Moderating candidate forums is an important part of our work. Tonight's League team includes Linda Sula, our timekeeper, and Didu Butori, who is providing Zoom support, along with the technical support at the Community Media Center of Marin, or CMCM. A reminder, all of the candidates have agreed to participate under the ground rules set for this forum. This evening's forum is being live streamed on the League's YouTube channel and simulcast on Marin TV channel 30, facilitated through our partnership with CMCM. It's being recorded and it will be available through our website at marinlwv.org. It will also be rebroadcast on Marin TV channel 30. Days and times will be posted later on our website. Candidates will be allowed specific times for their opening and closing remarks and to respond to questions. There are 4 candidates running for 2 seats on the Sausalito City Council, all of whom are with us this evening. Jill Hoffman, Joan Cox, Jeffery Chase, and Timothy McCloud. The candidates are now going to be allowed to make a 2-minute opening statement, and after that, they will each have 1 minute to answer each question. And to be fair, I will rotate the order. For opening statements, we will begin with Joan. Joan, please unmute yourself. Joan, this is your opportunity to make your opening statement.
Great. Good evening, and thank you all for attending. Many of you know me. I'm Joan Cox. I've been privileged to serve Sausalito as a mayor, council member, and planning commissioner for 12 years. Professionally, I'm a municipal lawyer working with cities and counties throughout California to address many of the same challenges we are facing here in Sausalito. As a 35-year resident, I am steeped in Sausalito's history and invested in creating her best future. I'm running for the city council again for 3 reasons. 1, we need a sensible housing plan that meets the very real, non-negotiable deadline of February next year. If we don't do this right, there will be tremendous pressure to build high-density housing all over Sausalito because we must build 724 units. So the deadline this February is to decide where those 724 units could go. This is a non-negotiable number and a non-negotiable deadline. That's why I co-founded Sensible Housing Sausalito, to help our community parse through these difficult issues and arrive at a new consensus on housing. 2 is an essential issue I like to call the 4 S's: streets, sidewalks, sewers, and storm drains. Everywhere we turn in Sausalito, we see the 3 C's: cracks, crevices, and crumbling. We have to fix Sausalito's infrastructure. And 3, stable city finances. A while back, some very smart volunteer Sausalito residents got together and wrote our general plan. 2 years ago, we spent $1 million to get an updated general plan. We have to spend less money on consultants. This has been part of my platform for the entire 12 years I've been in public service. Let's return to using local resident talent instead of hiring out-of-town consultants who don't understand our unique needs. Sausalito needs council members like me with proven and relevant experience. This is not the time to elect first-timers. Please vote to return me to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Timothy McCloud. Please unmute yourself.
Hello. I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters and also the Women's Club for hosting this forum. What does it mean that out of 7,200 residents, we have the same candidates seeking re-election or a desire to get back into local politics, and only one new challenger? I think it means that, probably unlike myself, most folks here are of sound mind. However, it also probably means that Sausalito is ripe for change, and I hope to have the opportunity to bring that change here. I moved from Detroit 13 years ago when it was against the law to marry the person that you love. I brought with me a strong work ethic, a can-do attitude, 20 years of environmental advocacy and activism, and in a welcoming spirit, and that brought me home to Sausalito. I have 2 main tenets that I've focused on and I would pursue if elected. The first is sound and modern governance. This means financial transparency. This also means that we have open meetings. We have open meetings, city council meetings, both in person and online. I also want to focus on 3 core issues that Sausalito has faced. The first being financial responsibility. Sausalito has been in a deficit spending the last 3 years. And this is problematic, especially when we think about any disaster, unplanned event that impacts Sausalito. If we are not financially secure, what does that mean for our residents? I also want to focus on prioritization of the basics. I want to focus on resident services. There are purchases that the City Council has made recently that it at first didn't have any goal or plan, and so I do want to focus.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can finish in your final comments.
Sure.
All right. Next up, we have Jill Hoffman. If you could unmute yourself.
Yep, thank you. I'm Jill Hoffman, and I'm running for re-election to the Sausalito City Council. Having served on the council for the last 8 years, I'm running based on my experience as an elected official and as an attorney who brings my background as an advocate and leader to the benefit of the people of Sausalito. I have consistently stood up and fought for our town. My track record includes finding housing solutions for those without shelter and a process to return our parks to daytime public use for all residents. My efforts resulted in approximately $1.2 million in grants to support our programs, one of which included an innovative rapid rehousing pilot based on a national model that is administered through trust accounts managed by their attorneys. Other efforts include protecting our waterfront through a program that solved a persistent problem mired in inertia, transitioning management back to Sausalito, saving hundreds of thousands of dollars that brought Sausalito waters back into legal compliance, respected boat owners, and safeguarded the ecological balance of Richardson Bay. On the financial front, last year, during my second term as mayor, we reinstated the finance director position and rebuilt the finance department. We presented an honest and straightforward assessment of our financial position in October of 2021. As a result, we have a 3-year plan for recovering our financial stability that I am committed to seeing through. Through my efforts forming and serving on the landslide task force and sea level rise task force, we brought together community, city government, and topic area experts to evaluate and provide a path forward for responding to these 2 primary physical risks that face our town. Our efforts resulted in specific plans for responding to these primary risks and resulted in $1.5 million in grants and funding. If reelected, I can and will continue to make a difference. Over the next 4 years, I will focus on issues that are reshaping the future of Sausalito. They include ensuring the strength and stability of Sausalito's finances, stewarding our essential working waterfront, and fostering our Blue Water Innovation Zone to take advantage of government incentives for sustainable industries, which have proven to be essential to our economic stability and recovery, and increasing the number of quality, affordable housing units for the people who work here and the families and seniors who want to stay. I'm committed to leading us forward together as we face these and new challenges in our uniquely Sausalito way that includes equity, diversity, and opportunity for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. All right, Jeffrey Jacob Case, please unmute yourself.
All right. Thank you very much to the Women's Club of Sausalito and the League of Women Voters, and to everybody that's watching at home, and to the other candidates as well. I would like this to be as much of a debate as possible, and I was very happy to hear from Joan Cox that she also is understanding about consultancy and how many millions of dollars that cost. In the last council meeting, there was a large amount of money, I think $76,000, given to a Mr. Wagner to oversee Sausalito properties. This could be done easily by people in Sausalito, city workers, county workers, state workers, if we have to do that. And the person who was given the money, his name is Mr. Wagner, I think. This is a husband of the former attorney for Sausalito. It's not? It's not. Well, either way, the $76,000 that was voted on did not need to happen, but oh well, I didn't make that decision. I think if we can remember in our lives, first time is sometimes the best time. I think 8 years and 12 years is an awfully long time. And since there aren't term limits in Sausalito, that's why we have Tim, 2 challengers. I'm one of them, even if I wasn't invited to Galilee where the last candidates debate was. So my 3 planks are fruit trees, de facto prohibition of community gardens in Sausalito continues, and the public land now is fenced. It has not been returned to public use, and that is in South Dunphy Park, as well as in the tennis courts. Freedom and forgiveness are the other 2. Freedom means that we revamp the police department so we do not have armed officers responding to non-emergency situations as well.
Jeffrey,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, now we're going to move to the question portion of the program this evening. And just as a reminder, everybody will have 1 minute to answer the question. So we're going to start with Timothy for question number 1. And the question is, as you know, COVID has had a severe economic impact in our communities. What do you think are the best ways to assist and encourage local businesses that rely on tourism in the waning years of this global pandemic?
Yes, so this is something that does require a sound strategy. And so there are 2 parts to this. The first is we have to support the tourism industry. I know that there are folks in town who don't like the amount of tourists and the amount of traffic that it brings. The reality is that the tax revenue that is generated by the tourism industry is essential. But concurrently, I would also promote for us to diversify away from tourism. If we've learned anything, it's that there is going to be another pandemic, and if there are downtrends in tourism that come into Sausalito, we need to have a diversified industry and a tax base that comes from that.
Thank you. Jill?
Thanks. Yeah, I agree. Obviously, as we emerge from COVID, we have challenges. Although I will tell you that I've been downtown in the past few months, and there are plenty of people that are coming back to Sausalito. So I'm happy to see that. I'm excited to see what our sales tax revenues from tourists, serving industries are going to be when we look at that come, at the end of the year. So I believe TOT, our transient occupancy tax, is probably going to be up, as well as our resident serving, or our tourist serving businesses. So what we've done is to reinvigorate downtown. We purchased the Bank of America building and specifically position that to reinvigorate what's going on down there, increase traffic, increase resident serving plans, as well as tourist serving, so that we can have a vibrant downtown. The other thing is too, we have to forget, we can't forget that our other industries are also very important in sustaining our economic stability. And so we need to focus on those as well. But I think there are things that we can further do for our tourism industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey, please unmute yourself. There you go.
Yes, there are two parts to this question, and they're connected, very much connected. COVID-19 managed to stop tourism. In fact, if we look at the history of what happened with COVID-19, it was tourism that also began it. It was world travel, it was airport travel, it was international tourism. So not only does international tourism spread pandemics, it is also fossil fuelishness to the nth degree, that we can have tourism and we can have this locally, that we can have people from the East Bay, we can have people from San Francisco come and visit this beautiful town without advertising people from all over the world to put carbon output up into the air and destroy our environment. That this does not add to the flavor nor to the benefit of local residents, that it adds the benefit of a few storekeepers, and the sales tax does not need to be raised by another half cent. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And Joan?
Thank you. I'm actually a proud member of Sausalito's Chamber of Commerce and Sausalito's Rotary Club, and I am a big supporter of our local businesses. You've probably seen some of my signs downtown. Every sign in every window is at a business that I've assisted with some issue while on the council. I also support the workhorse of Sausalito, which is the Marin Ship, which generates more sales tax revenue for Sausalito than any other area. So it's really important that we maintain the workhorse of Sausalito. Some of the things we've done to generate more business is we expanded parking permits to all of 94965 to encourage more visitors to Sausalito. Instead of just focusing on long distance tourism, we invested in a marketing plan that markets Sausalito as a regional visiting place. And we've established more outdoor dining and additional parklets to assist local businesses in recovering from the adverse impacts of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, question 2. Could you comment on the fact that Sausalito property owners are paying approximately 47.5 cents of every dollar of their property taxes for fire protection when other communities in the district are paying a flat rate? And with this question, we'll start with Jill.
Sue, that is an excellent question and has been the topic of much investigation and debate in Sausalito for the past, since I've been on the council. When I was on mayor last year, when I was on the finance committee, we did a deep dive into that and really uncovered that number. That was quite shocking, actually, when we started reporting it out, that's the amount of money that actually went to the Southern Marin Fire District. So even though we love our fire protection guys, the operators do a great job, and we appreciate their support. The balance of how that deal was worked out before I got on the council, I think it was in 2010, that maybe even 2009, that deal was worked out between Sausalito and the fire district, that Sausalito is our own fire district would go away and that we would merge with Southern Marin Fire. So I think we're going to be looking at that. I've talked to the chief about it several times. And we're probably going to go back to the district and look at that and how that was structured and look at it going forward. I'm happy that Mill Valley is now participating in Southern Marin Fire. Interestingly, their deal is about half of what ours is. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Jeffrey. And you're muted.
Thank you for that question. I'll talk about two fires that I witnessed, and they were at the Camp Cormorant #1 and Camp Cormorant #3. The first one was not covered by the press, and myself and Michael Ortega went into this fire and put this out. The second one was used as an excuse to call a state of emergency and to run the camp from the city instead of having the campers themselves participate in self-government. Of course, there needs to be a fire district and there needs to be police. Right now, it's not only the fire district costing this amount of money, the police also, and them together are 75% of the budget of Sausalito. That must come down. There's no reason to continue that. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan.
Thank you. I'm actually very familiar with this issue because I walked the streets and knocked on doors urging that our voters oppose Measure D, which adopted the our current financial arrangement with Southern Marin Fire. So I did not oppose it because I was opposed to the merger. I opposed it because I was opposed to the financial deal. The financial deal, just as you said in the question, establishes a flat percentage that we must contribute of our property tax every single year to Southern Marin Fire, no matter how big that pot of money becomes, and no matter what the need of Southern Marin Fire. So it was a bad deal for Sausalito. Unfortunately, we had a memorandum of understanding that was expiring at the time, and we were really over a barrel in terms of being able to negotiate pension needs and expenses. And so that's why the city entered into that deal. But I opposed it then. If there's a way to get out of that deal, I doubt it, but I would welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Timothy.
Yeah, so I think this is an example of players and consultants in city government who had ulterior motives and who were disingenuous. And I think if there were checks in place, if there were audits in place at the time, maybe voters would have been more informed, and we could have rejected the 40, I believe it's 46%, maybe 47%. And as Councilmember Hoffman mentioned is actually correct. All of the other communities that are a part of that are paying 50% less into the Southern Fire District. So I hope that we can all prevent this from happening again through audits and through less of a reliance on consultants.
Thank you. All right, going on to question number 3. How should the city prepare for the demands of the new state housing laws? And I'm going to start with Jeffrey on that question. Please don't forget to unmute yourself.
Got it. Housing, very important. Important to put human values atop property values. Whenever a house is built, that means the houses next door, their property values will, through economics, go down slightly. That is perhaps the reason there has been no housing built. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on consultants to tell the council not to build houses, and a continued denial of all of the state mandates for housing. That Jill Hoffman has said that Sausalito is fulfilling the RENA Act. That does not mean that housing is being built. At Camp Cormorant, we built 3 small houses. All 3 were bulldozed. It is time to build low-income housing, not 743, but one at a time, and one first. We did that. Sausalito did not agree, and we can do it again, and we need to do it again. Thank you.
Joan?
Thank you. I'm actually proud that Sausalito has been meeting its regional housing needs allocation requirement for the last cycle. I worked on the last 2 housing elements to come up with innovative strategies for meeting those requirements. As a planning commissioner and council member, I worked to create Sausalito's accessory dwelling unit program and junior accessory dwelling unit program. As a planning commissioner, I worked to have our liveaboards considered as residents who can vote and receive mail rather than just transients. And as a co-founder of Sensible Housing Sausalito over the last year, I have worked with other community members to create a comprehensive and sensible plan for meeting our new housing requirements that identifies senior and workforce housing sites throughout town to avoid overburdening any one area of town and to maintain Sausalito's charm. Thank you.
Timothy.
Yeah, so this is an issue that is going to require a lot less political speak and a lot more action. And so the only viable plan that I've seen is something called the Marinship Fair Use Plan. And it is encompassing all stakeholders, and it does meet the 724 units over 8 years. The one thing that I want to make sure that everybody realizes is that the state has allowed builders and developers to challenge cities who are not meeting their housing element numbers through something called builder's remedy. This is something that is extremely important, and it incentivizes communities to take action, not just speak about plans. And so I think I would work with the authors of the Marinship Fair Use Plan, which is the most comprehensive plan that I've seen. It incorporates all stakeholders, and it's all predominantly north of Bridgeway and north of Marinship. So it does preserve Marinship and working waterfront.
All right. Jill.
Pardon me, could you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. Should the city prepare for the demands of the new state housing laws?
Okay, thanks. I kind of lost the thread there.
Sure.
So yeah, how do we meet those needs for the new units that are going to be built, right? So our arena number is 724 units, which is quite substantial. That's about 10% of the population of Sausalito. So increasing by 10%. Interestingly, when we got our number, things such as high fire risk areas susceptible to sea level rise and landslides were not taken into account, nor were deeded open space. And so the methodology, I believe, was flawed in how the state was coming up with these numbers. We will complete our plan in January. We've been working very hard on it. The city council will approve that plan. So that's why it's important that who you're voting for in this election, that's the person that's going to be finalizing the plan. We need to really think about what's the infrastructure and how is our infrastructure going to handle 724 new units in Sausalito. That's going to be a lot of work for us. I have no doubt we're going to comply with it. We complied with our last RENA requirement after about 2 years. So we have had building in Sausalito, and I'm proud of that. We met our affordable units very early on.
Thank you. All right, number 4 is a bit of a long one, so I will read it slowly. Last year, the city of Sausalito had an accrued unfunded pension liability of $29.7 million. Besides potential expanded tax dollars from the passage of Measure L, increasing city sales tax by 1% to a total of 9% or $2.8 million annually, deficit spending, staff furloughs, and cutbacks may still be necessary. What long-term strategies would you recommend to address this issue? And with that, we're going to start with Joan.
Thank you. So first of all, we started working on this issue back in 2018. When I was the mayor in 2018, our finance department flattened the bell curve of our pension obligations so that instead of reaching a huge zenith at the top of the hill in the next couple of years, we flattened that curve so that our annual obligation is less than it otherwise would have been. Second, I have to say Measure L is not for pensions. Measure L is for basic services, infrastructure repairs. It's not for pensions, won't be used for pensions. And third, in order to afford to pay our pension debt, we have to get back to basics. We have to take a haircut where necessary, stop spending so much money on outside consultants. You rely on our residents, who are very talented, to help us with our big brain issues and our boards and commissions, and stop deficit spending. keep in mind, we've had 3 disasters in the last 4 years that have adversely impacted our budget. We were in great health prior to that. Thank you.
Timothy.
Yes, so 29.7 million in pension costs. Obviously, with inflation, this is going to become substantial, and so that is why the fundamentals of my platform are to rein in spending, and also to including not only consultants but also the excessive fees that we're spending, legal fees that we're allocating to legal firms and legal and attorneys and settlements. And so I do think that pensions, that bonds to fund the pensions are a scary proposition. So I would seek an alternative, which does start with proper financial management. That's it.
Jill.
Thanks. So I've been talking about the pension debt since I was first elected in 2014. So at that time, we had about a 5 million unfunded pension liability. I was advocating at that time that any surplus we had in our budget would go to paying down that unfunded liability to get it down as low as possible. I could not get 3 votes on the council to do that. What we could get 3 votes to do was create a pension trust fund in 2015. The idea was that we would segregate money for our pensions in a separate trust fund, that they would continue to grow with interest, and then we would use those to flatten our payments in later years, which is starting now. In this year, 2023 to 2026, we're going to see the top of the curve on these pensions. So the problem was in 2017 and 2020 and 2018, the pension trust fund wasn't funded as it was supposed to be funded. So we don't have as much money in that trust fund as we would have. So what we have to do is look at our debt, our total debt. Half of that $60 million debt that we now have that is pushing our structural deficit is due to pension debt. So thank you.
Jeffrey.
Thank you very much for asking a question about pensions. We can start with the chief of police, John Rohrbacher, who is now out on sick leave along with Captain Faras. Have been on sick leave for quite a while and still are on sick leave, and as far as I know, are getting paid. He was getting 2 pensions, not only from being chief of police of San Rafael, but also working for the DA's office. That's called double dipping, and that needs to immediately stop. Until that happens for the chief of police here, then this is disingenuous. The same way that there was a chance, Joan Cox, to vote against a consultant for $76,000 on the consent calendar on Tuesday. As far as I know, you voted for it. So there has to be action, and it is not very difficult to start by trimming Chief Rohrbacher's 2 pensions. Let's do that.
All right. We are now going to move on to question number 5. Next is a question submitted by the Aging Action Initiative. There are issues facing older adults in your jurisdiction, such as housing, aging in place, and creating those much needed ADUs. How should your city council address them? And we're going to start this time with Timothy.
Yes, so housing costs across the board continue to increase. The current financial economic situation exacerbating things for all folks. So residents who are on fixed income, residents who are on Social Security, that places them at risk. So absolutely, the housing element needs to account for low and moderate income housing to address some of the concerns particularly for housing for the aging residents. I also think infrastructure, which I mentioned since entering this race, has to be a priority. And especially for those, the residents who are using sidewalks to walk around. And so those are the 2 places I would start.
Jill.
Thanks. Yeah, keeping seniors keeping them in their homes, if they want to stay in their homes, is a really important effort that we need to do. We also need to increase affordable housing units across the board, but primarily also to provide an avenue for seniors to remain in our communities. So I think we're working on that. That's part of our housing element update. And I knew we're going to support that. We've been committed to supporting that. And I think Sausalito is a wonderful place for seniors to stay, to come to, and to live. And we have a wonderful community that supports seniors. We have an award-winning, World Heritage award-winning Sausalito Village that has a plethora of programs for seniors and assistance for seniors. And we have programs, in our police department to have safe calls to seniors in our community to check on them. So we value and treasure our seniors here in Sausalito, and we want to keep them in our community for as long as we can, and for as long as they want to stay here. So thank you.
All right, Jeffrey.
Thanks. I'll give a shout out to Sunshine, who I saw a couple times today and does live in senior housing. There are units of senior housing in Sausalito, not nearly enough. What needs to be talked about is low income housing. The houses get bigger and bigger, and the number of people living in them gets smaller and smaller. That is in no way sustainable. It is only a number on a computer screen, somebody's property values, and people must look beyond that. Otherwise, they do not have a sustainable or a livable city. So ADUs are great. To put more people in houses that already exist is fantastic. To build affordable housing now, not 743 units, one unit.
Thank you. Joan.
Thank you. I am proud to say that Sausalito is age-friendly, due in large measure to Sausalito Village and other award-winning organizations that our residents commence and maintain. In terms of housing, I, as part of my Sensible Housing Plan, have identified 8 city-owned sites that could be deeded to developers for senior and workforce housing in exchange for nothing, in exchange for a deed restriction to make it affordable for our seniors and our workers. In terms of aging in place, I'm proud to say Sausalito has a home sharing program that is a unique and innovative way to allow seniors to stay where they are by having a roommate or another person living either with them or in an ADU that allows them to get help with their errands and other things, provides affordable housing to someone who needs it. So this home sharing program is wonderful, and Sausalito Village helps with that networking. Sausalito Village also has a preparedness cluster program where it has mapped all 212 members and created neighborhood clusters to ensure safety in the event of any emergency. Thank you.
All right, question 6. What is your opinion on Measure K, which would authorize one cannabis storefront in Sausalito? And if Measure K does not pass, how would you approach safe, regulated cannabis sales in Sausalito? And we're going to start with Jill.
Well, anybody who's read the 14 pages that is the actual Measure K, proposal wouldn't probably not be for Measure K. There's so many conditions in there that really create a monopoly for this one group. A couple of them are you had to have met with 3 city council members before 2021. So clearly, it's creating a monopoly for this one company, for one retail, for a distribution center, and for delivery services. So I think, and it removes all local control over this business. So I think it's not the right measure for Sausalito. Interestingly, in February of 2021, before they filed their measure, we had approved a process by which a cannabis store could be in Sausalito through a development agreement. And that process would have come to the city council, and we would have looked at it and negotiated with them and see if we could figure out how we can move forward with it. The other thing is it's located right along the safe route to school, this project. And so for that reason, I think it's probably not appropriate for Sausalito. So thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey.
Thank you very much. I am in favor of cannabis, not only putting a store there, but people using it the same way that they use wine, which Jill Hoffman, thank you very much, Jill, now discloses on her financial form that she, Quest Wine Company, is that correct? That cannabis is equivalent to wine. That I have not read all of these pages, but I have seen the city council obstruct housing, dealing with the Anchorage homelessness, and many more issues. And for them to obstruct cannabis is par for the course. And I think it needs to stop and stop now. It can begin as a monopoly, and then there can be more storefronts. But the idea that we should sell wine and even push it and not cannabis is the epitome of hypocrisy. Thank you.
Joan,
Thank you. I'm going to agree with the Marin IJ's endorsement of no on K. Measure K is the wrong measure for Sausalito. It's written so that only one company qualifies. It deprives Sausalito of local control. Sausalito won't be able to manage that business as it does every other business in town. And it doesn't create enough money for Sausalito to manage the impacts that will undoubtedly arise from the increased traffic to and from and other infrastructure impacts. Sausalito needs to be able to manage this business just like every other business. I worked with Connor Johnson and Otter Brands in 2019 and 2020 to draft a development agreement whereby Sausalito would adopt its own ordinance allowing for a cannabis storefront. If this measure passes, and I hope it will not, if this measure does not pass, I will help finalize the creating of a Sausalito storefront cannabis ordinance. Thank you.
Timothy.
I think Measure K is an example of a city council that has at times been reactive and not proactive. This measure came about, and candidate Cox had mentioned that she had started this process several years ago. It shouldn't take 4 or 5 years or something like this for the city council to see the opportunity that many other communities have seen, and San Francisco has seen the benefits, the tax benefits. It was $50,000 or 7%. Was going to be the tax implication, the tax opportunity. I think that is low. I do hope that should Measure K fail, the city council prioritizes this issue and generates an additional revenue source that is sorely needed.
All right. Question 7. What is your opinion on the city's offer to purchase the machine shop in Marin Ship? And for that question, we're going to start with Jeffrey. And you're still muted, Jeffrey.
There we go. Yeah, so it is a shame that there are so many still empty storefronts, empty buildings, empty office buildings in particular that the city council has voted for during the 8 years Jill Hoffman has been mayor and city council and the 12 years that Joan Cox has been. There are so many empty places that this is symbolic. And it can be symbolic of reopening this town and not standing in the way of something good, whether it is a mariner's industry, boat working, or low-cost housing, whatever it is. People need to stop talking and stop paying money with an appearance of corruption to consultants to tell them what they want to hear, to not do something. That needs to end and end now, and it can end with Marin Ships. Thank you.
Joan.
I absolutely support Sausalito ownership of the machine shop for the right price. So years ago, I asked Congressman Hoffman to give it to Sausalito for a penny, given the potential expense in front of us. Fortunately, minimal cleanup down there will be required if we maintain an industrial use. We have at least one company already interested in leasing. If we obtain it and lease it, we should require they perform all repairs, just as the city did with the Bank of America building and the Sausalito Center for the Arts. There's also insurance money available to assist with any required cleanup. I'd like to see us move the function of the corporation yard to the machine shop site. Then, and the corporation yard is in a residential neighborhood. If we move that function to the machine shop, we can then build affordable housing for seniors and workers at the corporation yard, which is in a neighborhood where it would be ideally suited. Thank you.
Timothy.
This is a complex issue, and I do want to revert back to getting back to basics and prioritization. We are the city roads are crumbling, the sidewalks are in disrepair, sewers need to be fixed, and we're fixated on acquisition of a building that the VA, the Veterans Administration, cannot get rid of. There is $360,000 a year security costs. There's between a 900 and 1.1 million estimation on cleanup costs. And if candidate Cox wants to move the corporation yard, there are people who actually get in the trucks that are placed on the corporation yard. So they will be exposed to contaminants if we move the corporation yard over to the machine shop. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill.
Thanks. Well, so yeah, the machine shop. Well, I've been looking at this since I was elected in 2014, and it was the VA was going to take it, and they didn't want it, and then we're trying to figure out if we can get it. What are we going to do with it? So Sausalito residents really went after it and landmarked it as a historic landmark. So it is a historic landmark building. It is part of our historic working waterfront. It is part of our history. It's part of our heritage. And frankly, it's probably part of a historic zone that we need to create in the Marinship, going back to all of the successes that we had through civil rights in that district back when it was an operating machine shop. So the toxicity levels right now allow for industrial use. There's 42,000 square feet of industrial use space for our working waterfront. So yes, I would like to keep the machine shop. It's got to be at the right deal and the right price. And I think whoever takes it after we get it has to accept all of the costs of rehabilitating and using it for whatever it is they want to use it for in an industrial manner. So I think it could be a great asset, and I'm looking at it and how we can get it.
All right. Well, this question kind of ties back. What are your priorities for the Marinship, given that 75% of Sausalito's sales tax revenue comes from this area? And we're going to start with Joan for this question.
It's funny, the Marinship has been a priority for me since 2010, when I first ran for office in Sausalito. I actually found an old video clip, a 1-minute video clip that I made in 2010. I really endorse the vision statement adopted by the City Council in 2019 for the Marinship, which includes preservation of the working waterfront and the artists, and moving forward with the industrial working waterfront as a priority. I have been working with the working waterfront regarding housing, and I believe some housing could be appropriate in the Marinship north of Harbor Drive, but not around the boatyard, not around the working waterfront. It's so important that we preserve the working workhorse of Sausalito, which generates 47% of our sales tax revenues every year. So I'm a big fan of preserving the Marinship. Thank you.
Timothy.
Marinship is the perfect location for us to continue to diversify our industry and our tax base, our income, our sales tax base. I've had a chance to go down there. I've submitted a 4-point plan to the leaders of both the Marinship and the Working Waterfront Coalition. There are easy industries that we could attract and incentivize through an incubation program that would love to be a part of the Marinship. And those, we could start with green industries, startups. But again, I would want to focus on improving infrastructure to allow for some of those startups and new industries to really feel like the city is providing adequate services.
Thanks, Jill.
Well, the Marinship is an underutilized economic powerhouse. And for a long time, what we heard on the city council was, quote, the myth of the working waterfront. And clearly, it is not a myth. The working waterfront accounts for a large portion of our sales tax, although it's been underutilized and largely neglected. So we have an incredible mix of innovators down there, boat builders, people that service houseboats, people that one of the few remaining shipways where ferries are pulled out. So it is a powerhouse down there that we need to foster and support and move forward. We have Candela electric boats down there right now. Each one of those boats sells for $400,000 a piece. They're looking for a space, an industrial space, about 40,000 square feet. That might be, I don't know if it's going to be the machine shop or not, but we have other areas down there where we could have additional industrial space. We have Energy down there that's electric charging, fast charging stations. We're going to have one of the first electric marine charging stations on San Francisco Bay. We need to move forward with this and foster this innovation down there.
Jeffrey.
Yes, we're talking about the waterfront. So if we're talking about the waterfront, we have to begin with the anchorage on Rainbow Bay, specifically the obstruction of landing for kayaks and skiffs and inflatables of the people who remain on either the Sausalito, the so-called Sausalito side, or the other side of the channel. That at Marin ships, as in every other place on the Sausalito waterfront, it has been obstructed by city council ordinances that have been passed and by the individual landowners and marina owners as well. That needs to stop, and stop now too. So I've stopped my lawsuit. There's no more lawsuit from me against the city of Sausalito about that. So I'm working on this election and doing that this way. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're on to question number 9. Do you think Sausalito is doing a good job regulating bicycle traffic, especially with the growing popularity of e-bikes? And with that, we're going to start with Timothy.
Yes, I do think that the city and the city council is doing an adequate job. There are proposals to modify some of the bike thoroughfares, particularly South Bridgeway after Princess Street. There is a request to remove that middle the middle lane and allow for bike lanes. It does feel that in that particular area, a middle lane is necessary for emergency services, and because there is not enough room to have only both bike and car lanes. So that specific area, I do think the city is addressing it and responding appropriately.
Jill.
Thanks. Yeah, one of the things I worked on in 2016 was the first ever plan in Sausalito to regulate tourist bikes that were coming into town. At that time, we had about 1,500 to 3,000 bikes in town a day, and it was overwhelming our streets, and it was overwhelming our police department, and it was overwhelming the ferry staff trying to get those bikes back on the ferry. So we created a program where we had parking for bikes downtown by the ferry. We were the first ever city that had paid bike parking that paid for basically the staff and the administrative costs. At the end of the pilot period, we were clearing about, or looking that we were going to start clearing about $200,000 a year just based on bike parking alone. Then the COVID hit, and I don't know where we're at with the program right now. We're probably going to put an RFP out again for next year about bringing back that program back up to speed. But I think we're doing a great job. I think we're way out in front of anybody else in any other town and trying to manage bicycles, especially tourist bicycles coming into town. We'll see how the electric bikes are changing the landscape. But anyway, yeah, I think we're doing a great job.
Jeffrey. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Yes, I'll speak about bicycles as a person who owns a Gary Fisher bike, and not a car, not a van, not an SUV, not a truck. That what Jill Hoffman is bragging about, her 2016 program, it was nepotistic and corrupt in the sense that it was not just tourist bikes, that my bike in particular and my friend Lotus's bike were locked up, and other bikes were from Mill Valley were allowed to be taken and didn't have to pay for being locked up by the police department with a police department lock. That is truly insane. The police have no business regulating bicycle traffic like this, specifically when they're not regulating car traffic, not truck traffic, but going after the only non-carbon output part that most tourists use. So I'm not a fan of mass tourism, especially from foreign countries, but I am very much a fan of bicycles. There needs to be encouragement for bicycles for the people of the city and for tourists. Thank you.
Joan.
Thank you. So interesting story. Sausalito's bicycle congestion issue started because we were published in a bunch of travel brochures as the Golden Gate Bridge ride from San Francisco to Sausalito was the best ride in the world. And then the ferry ride back was the best ferry ride in the world. And so we had hundreds of folks visiting Sausalito to ride their bike across the Golden Gate Bridge and then to take the ferry back. We suffered mightily for a couple of years. And then I'm proud that in 2017, we hired Sausalito Bike Return, as Councilmember Hoffman described. Sausalito Bike Return, run by the Scapazis, returns bikes so that people don't have to wait in line and to get on the ferry. They can enjoy their time in Sausalito, shop, return their bike, and the truck takes them back to Sausalito, back to San Francisco. So I think that was an innovative approach. It worked. And so I'm very proud of how Sausalito has been managing its bicycle congestion challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, question number 10. What do you think could have improved the homeless situation that Sausalito has experienced, and what steps should be taken to prepare for a similar situation in the future? And with that question, we'll start with Jill.
Well, I think we worked very hard to find housing solutions for everybody in our encampment. We're able to close our encampment and have the lawsuit dismissed with prejudice. So meaning that we've settled with everybody that was in the encampment, plus about another 15 people that we decided were also within the scope of what we were trying to do. So we created something that hadn't been done in Marin County on this scale. We created a rapid rehousing stipend based on a national plan of Housing First. We talked to the Housing First national, godfather of the idea, Dr. Sam Sabaris, and he helped guide us in creating our plan. So I'm very pleased with that. We closed our encampment. We have returned, we will return. We have a plan to return that space to public use after remediation. And I think, going forward, the encampment was there mainly because there was an injunction preventing us from closing the encampment. Yep. So those conditions no longer exist, and I don't expect this to erupt again. Thank you.
Jeffrey.
Yes, this is a matter near and dear to my heart. I lived in Camp Cormorant. Number one, this space was taken in a way recommended by a man named Henry David Thoreau. It was not about homelessness only. It was specifically also about the boats, about the anchorage. That we had issues amongst ourselves as well as with the city. Neither side acted perfectly, especially the spending of $1.5 million on lawyers from Nob Hill and lawyers from San Francisco to fight us, bringing in Urban Alchemy, people that had been released and were murderers to patrol this camp, caused a very significant amount of trouble. The settlement agreement, I have not taken the $18,000. It's not mine, but I'm glad that it happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan.
Thank you. As a municipal lawyer, I lecture throughout California on housing and homelessness. So I know how many others have addressed homelessness challenges. In 2018, I started Sausalito's Safe Harbor program to provide marina slips for Sausalito's homeless living on boats in Sausalito waters. That included wraparound services from the County of Marin, the Ritter Center, the Chamber of Commerce, and others. So I heartily endorse Marin County's Housing First approach that has had great success elsewhere in our nation and actually internationally. And I think the solution that Sausalito arrived at to use a Housing First rapid rehousing approach for members of its homeless encampment was brilliant and a win-win for all involved. Thank you.
Thank you. And Timothy.
So I hear the word rapid frequently in this response, and I don't know if that accurately describes the scenario. It took 18 months for city council to arrive at a short-term fix of a settlement of 540,000, 18,000 for each encampment resident. Also, I think part of this is when we think of being reactive or proactive, part of what could have been helpful is to get ahead of what was an encampment that was creating and was building, and get into the encampment and actually verify who the members of the encampment were, because from what some have uncovered, some of those residents in the encampment actually had physical addresses, so they weren't in fact potentially homeless. So I do think it's an opportunity for us to think of long-term fixes instead of short-term settlements.
Thank you. All right, we're coming to the home stretch here, getting close. This is question 11. What do you think are the most important issues facing the city in the coming months? And with that question, I'm going to start with Jeffrey.
Thank you. I'm just going to answer Timothy McCloud here. There was no one in that camp that didn't need to be in that camp. There were not people that were living in houses that I'm just saying this is something.
So let's try to stay on topic for the question. The question is, what are the most important issues facing the city in the coming months?
Yeah, so we'll start at the bottom, that we need a bottom-up approach and not a top-down approach, because the top-down approach, it appears to be nepotistic and corrupt. That a bottom-up approach, as we worked very hard at Camp Cormorant and did not succeed completely, nor does the settlement succeed completely, but it succeeds enough that I was in favor and still am in favor of it, but it is not ended. The situation is not over. So we have to be most concerned with the people who are at the bottom. Those are the houseless people. Those are the people that live on boats. That's the working class. That's the people in Sausalito that work at the businesses, not the business owners. I keep on hearing about business owners. What about people who live here and work here? That is where we need to start. And when we concentrate on human values and not property values and not money, that's where we'll start, but not where we'll end. Thank you
very much. Joan.
I think the three most urgent priorities are the three reasons I'm running for the city council. One, we must develop a sensible housing plan that meets our non-negotiable deadline of February next year and our non-negotiable quota of 724 new units. That's why I co-founded Sensible Housing Sausalito, to come up with a sensible place to place those 724 units without ruining Sausalito's charm and without high density housing in any one area. Two is the 4 S's: sewers, sidewalks, storm drains, and streets. With the 3 C's: crumbling, cracks, and crevices. We have to fix Sausalito's infrastructure. And 3 is stable city finances. We have to return to using local resident talent instead of hiring expensive out-of-town consultants who don't understand Sausalito's unique needs. Thank you.
Timothy.
So first is financial responsibility. That is to stop overspending and to avoid a 4th year of deficit spending. Before we can even begin to think of accommodating new housing units, I've been saying since day one that infrastructure, both current infrastructure and planned infrastructure for new housing units, has to be a priority. So those are the two. I think also what we haven't discussed much, maybe it'll come up, but sea level rise and carbon emissions. All of these points are going to be moot if we cannot get ahead of Marin County's higher than normal output of carbon emissions. And it starts with Sausalito, and I think we can do things here.
Thank you. Jill?
Thanks. Yeah, we have huge issues this next year that there are complex, big issues that we've been working on for a number of years. So obviously the first one is completing our housing element. The specifics of that plan are going to be voted on by the city council. The final the final hurdle to get over it is coming to the city council. That's why it's so important to elect people to the city council that can manage that challenge. The second one is that we need to adhere to our plan for economic recovery and support efforts to foster acceleration of our business community and increase our tax revenues so that we can emerge from this structural deficit in which we find ourselves due to the tsunami of debt that has come due in the past 2 years. So those are the biggest issues I think that are coming. Infrastructure, of course, is important. The things that we learned from the 2 task forces that I headed, the Sea Level Rise Task Force and the Landslide Task Force, really highlight what we need to do on infrastructure. This past week at the City Council, we talked about sewer consolidation and what we had done to update our sewers.
Thank you.
And so I'm happy we're moving forward with those 2 things.
Thank you. All right, everybody catch your breath. It's the last question.
Did we go through everybody on that question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss you? I
I
apologize.
think you might have, just like Galilee did. I hope one of the council candidates said something there, that there weren't 4 people.
Okay, I apologize.
Maybe they didn't.
Did I
Maybe
miss?
they didn't, but they should have.
We did.
I thought I
You
got
did.
it.
Thank you,
All right,
Timothy.
everybody. Thank you very much. All right.
Wait. So let me just, if I can get my minute for that question.
Okay, I thought you did, but I
I
apologize.
don't think I did.
All right. Okay.
Okay, we're here. Well, first I'd like to apologize to Joan Cox since she did not vote for the consultant fee to Mr. Wagner because she's not on the council and she's proof that every vote counts. Jill Hoffman did vote for that. And so the crony consultants, the nepotism and large appearance of corruption continues and must stop immediately. I hope if Joan, if you win this election, that you work on that, and just because you're back on the council, that you don't change your mind.
Jeffrey, I apologize here. I'm looking back at my checklist and you actually did start this question. So
Did I start it? Really?
you did. And I'm
Okay, I got an extra half a minute, Joe.
Yeah, well, that's why we're going to move on here so that everybody gets their fair time. All right, we're down to the last question now. How might you include community feedback, including older adults, in solving those issues? And I'm going to start with Joan on that question.
Thank you. So this is something that I ran on in 2010 when I first ran for office. And I said residents first, because transparency and public process is such a vital part of how we do business. I have been thrilled with the Zoom meetings. We've had more attendees at the Zoom meetings than we ever did in person. I'm actually in favor of a hybrid approach so that when we go back to meeting in person, we still make Zoom meetings available so that our seniors and others can watch and participate from their home without having to come sit in the cold city council chambers. But transparency is essential. Last night, the city council actually postponed an item that was on their agenda because it was after 10 and they were just starting a complex item. That's exactly what needs to happen so that we don't undertake and make decisions about important issues late at night when not everybody is available to attend and participate. So I think transparency and public process are of paramount importance. Thank you.
Thank you. Timothy.
Sorry, Sue, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Get it, put it over here already. How might you include community feedback, including older adults, in solving those issues?
Probably the most important question that I missed. I think, fortunately, in my professional world, I am tasked with developing communications and delivering them to the right people at the right time and at the right place. And so I've worked even over the last few weeks, not as a candidate, I've worked with Abbott Chambers, our director of communication, and we've brainstormed on ideas of how we can deliver relevant updates to citizens, to residents, and particularly to older residents who maybe aren't in email every 5 minutes like the rest of us. So that is absolutely something that I would champion with Abbott Chambers. Other communities are doing this. Other communities allow residents to pick which issues they want to be informed on. They're notified. They're using every single channel that we can that we have, and that is something that I could help move forward if elected immediately.
Jill.
Thanks. So soliciting community feedback and transparency is on overdrive in Sausalito. If you've been a part of it or been paying attention, every week there's a town hall on something. Tonight before this debate, there was another HEAC meeting, a Housing Element Advisory Committee meeting. They've had 10 so far. And so especially I had to smile when you said older citizens. Do you not know Sausalito? I mean, those guys are a powerhouse. They will not be ignored. And so there's no problem with older adults in Sausalito not being fully informed. They come to our meetings, they regularly speak up. Sausalito Village weighs in as advocates for our seniors. In fact, every committee, board and commission we have has somebody on there that might be considered a senior. I mean, my goodness, I can't imagine even one of our boards or commissions that doesn't have somebody that's close to 70 or more than 60 for sure. On this call, I'm sure there's some of us in that category. So I think we do a great job actually in Sausalito. We have a weekly occurrence that goes out. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, communication's big.
Jeffrey.
Thank you. So Janelle Kelman, the present mayor, is not here, but Jill Hoffman is. What's happened with city council meetings is that they've taken public comment and moved it from the beginning of the meeting to the end of the meeting. That's at 10 or 10:30 or 9:45 or whatever it is. So that is a very, very big issue. Another one is when I hear acronyms like RENA or HIAC, and we're talking about housing, which is endless conversations about this and endless amounts of money that are spent on this. That what we do is we simplify, we make this intelligible to the average person, that this does not become an idea that only a consultant that is paid $348,000 can understand, but the average citizen will be able to follow the meetings, that they are succinct, they are to the point, and they are action oriented, not talk and money oriented. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, that concludes the question part of the forum this evening. So you can all catch your breath for a minute here. Before you make your closing statements, I want to share some key information about this year's election. So new this year, Marin County has implemented the Voters' Choice Act, which offers more days and more ways to vote. Now, all active registered voters were automatically mailed a ballot earlier this week. Some of you probably got yours in your mailbox today. Ballots can be returned either by U.S. mail, at an official secure ballot drop box, or at a vote center. Now, for in-person voting, vote centers have replaced the assigned neighborhood polling places. Voters may vote in person at any vote center in Marin, and a complete list of those locations is included in your voter information guide. All the vote centers will be open at least 4 days before Election Day. And if you have any further questions on this, please reach out to our Marin County Elections Department, either in person, online, or by phone. So slide 1, which are some important dates. Ballots were dropped on October the 10th. Official ballot drop boxes now will be available. October 24th is the last day to register online to vote. Some vote centers will open on October 29th. The rest will all open on November 5th. And November 8th is Election Day. All vote centers are open until 8 p.m. on that day. Mailed ballots must be postmarked no later than this date, and ballots returned using the ballot drop box must be deposited no later than 8 p.m. Most importantly, please remember to sign your ballot if you return it by mail in a drop box, because your signature is your verification. Slide 2, please. There are many online resources for election information, including the League's website at marinlwv.org. I want to highlight one of these. Voter's Edge is an online tool that provides unbiased, in-depth information about what's on your ballot in English and in Spanish. It's a project of the League of Women Voters. Candidates are invited to enter their information, and voters can get a personalized list of candidates, including their biographies, top priorities, and information about local ballot measures and more. Visit votersedge.org. You'll see this slide again at the end of the form, so you can take a photo or make a note. Thank you. You can take down slide 2. All right, and now the candidates will make closing statements of 1 minute each. We will go in reverse order of the opening statements, which means we will start with Jeffrey.
So thank you very much for allowing us this opportunity. And especially thank you to the other candidates that I talked about forgiveness, and I've been involved in this battle in politics, trying to understand it and now participate in it for quite a while. I think it's important that we at least mention climate change, that leadership from elected officials to decarbonize Sausalito must start with a divestment from the city council members personally from fossil fuelishness. Also a divestment of city investments in stocks and bonds as well. That this is a very important issue. Marin is very lax in being able to mitigate carbon output. In fact, they're a leader in that, and that is not a good thing to be a leader in. So I want leaders on the council that will lead the decarbonization of Sausalito first. Thank you.
Jill.
We're at a crucial crossroads. We have three big challenges in the near term. We need to finish our state mandated housing element. We need to adhere to our plan for economic recovery, and we need to support efforts to foster acceleration of our business community and our working waterfront. Over the past 8 years, I've worked hard to understand the complex issues facing our town, evaluated the facts and regulations in almost all the complex issues we face, and charted a path forward that includes policy decisions that define us as a community on those complex and challenging issues we faced. I am optimistic as we look forward to the plan we've laid out for our recovery and believe we will complete this transition to a more efficient and effective government that serves all in Sausalito. I ask for your vote to support as we lead through this phase. I'm honored to be the only candidate endorsed by Congressman Hoffman and the Marin County Democratic Party. I'm also endorsed by the Marin Women's Political Action Committee and the Marin IJ. The most important endorsement I want is yours. I want your vote. If you like what you heard, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, vote Jill on election day. I'll go anywhere, almost anywhere, and talk to almost any group. Find me on my website, jill@sausalito.com. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Timothy.
So first, there's been negative rhetoric. We focus on issues. The tone, it can become negative, but I can assure you that every single person on this call cares deeply about this city, and I do feel would represent the city well. The issue is at hand, and what I hear from residents are candidates who are a bit disconnected and who don't see issues with the fact that their law firm is currently the city's law firm. So these are the types of things that I hear from residents who are concerned about financial transparency, about governance, about being proactive and using benchmarks to evaluate how the city is performing. I am encouraged by Chris Zapata, the new city manager. I chatted with him last week. He's got a plan to reinvigorate city staff, and he's going to require the support of a city council, both to empower him and to provide him with the resources that are needed. I'm also encouraged by Mayor Kelman and Vice Mayor Blasey. Thank you.
Joan.
Well, if this sounds repetitive, actually, I'm glad, because I hope you'll remember why it's important to return me to the City Council. 3 reasons. 1, the deadline for our plan to build 724 new units of housing is February, and we need the right plan. 2, fix the 4 S's: streets, sidewalks, sewers, and storm drains. And 3, fiscal stability under everything we do. I am truly passionate about the challenges facing cities and towns. This is what I do for a living, day in and day out. It's what I choose to do, and I would like to do it again for Sausalito. This is not the time for first timers. I've earned the endorsement of the Marin IJ, the Marin Women's Political Action Committee, Congressman Hoffman, Assemblymember Levine, Supervisors Moulton, Peters, and Connolly, and former Supervisor Sears, 11 current and former Sausalito mayors, every council member except my fellow candidate, and dozens of other local and regional leaders. You can see more at my website, joancoxforcouncil.com. I hope that you will vote to return me to the City Council. Thank you all for attending, and have a good evening.
Thank you. And thank you to our host partners and to the candidates for participating, and to the League Forum team. And special thanks to the Community Media Center of Marin. We couldn't have done this without you. A video of tonight's forum will be posted on the League's website in the next few days, And thank you again, everyone, for joining us this evening. And most important, thank you for voting. Everyone have a nice evening.
All right, thanks.